welcome back everybody to Pixel Project Radio. I'm Rick, of course, and I'm glad you're here. This week, this special patron episode is not just for the patrons, it's by the patrons. That's right, your ears don't deceive you. Today, I am joined by none other than one of the two magnificent hosts of the List Off podcast. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Ryan.
Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for having me on for this special episode.
I could not have picked a better guest for this episode because today we are talking about the mobile game that has been taking the scene by storm, particularly the indie podcast scene, but you know, other places too. We're talking about Marvel Snap.
Yes, sir. Man, my love for this game is deep. Although in our Game of the Year list, it only came up as number 3 for me for 2022. So you may have been better off with Brian on that on that road. It was his number 1. It was his number 1, man.
Yeah, I remember him saying that. It was largely through you two that I decided to pick up this game and give it a chance. Just some quick information before we start. This game was only recently released in October. October 18th, I believe. So it's really, really recent by the developer Second Dinner. Do you know much about these guys? Do you know anything that they've done before?
I know it's Ben Brode, I think, worked on Hearthstone, and he has a long run of competitive card games, deck building games, and the like. So he I think, is the lead designer on the game, and it was in very capable hands from the start. And I think it also existed in a beta phase, a closed beta, for an extended period of time, months before release, and people were playtesting and giving good feedback, and that's why I think it was met with such success when it was officially released, because it was extremely balanced from the get-go, which is a must for competitive deck building games.
So let's talk about it a little bit. I like I was saying, I gave it a chance largely because of how highly you and Brian spoke of it. So much so that you guys have kind of reinvigorated your Discord, part of your Discord, into a Marvel Snap zone, if you'll pardon the pun. It's a very active channel and has a lot of people playing this game.
Yeah, we actually, well, I wish I could say we host tournaments there. Our Discord hosts tournaments. It's really a friend of the show, Jay from Super Bracket Brothers, who puts the tournaments together, and we're very thankful for him. But yeah, man, it has added a lot of activity. Even after our podcast ended, it's kind of kept the Discord going, and it's been fun. I see you popping in there and commenting, and it's a really good discourse about some of the cards and some of the changes made, and like, it's always helpful if you're looking for like a good deck or a good card to build a deck around, or any advice. People are extremely helpful and quick to offer that assistance.
I know I've picked up a few tips and tricks just from reading through some of the stuff that, you know, people talk about in there, or some of the strategies and etc. I'm much lower in terms of like rank or collection level than I think most people in there, because you guys have been at this pretty much since the game came out. But it is exciting to sort of catch up.
As soon as the game was released, I was like night and day. If I had 3 minutes to spare, I was jumping on. So my collection level skyrocketed, especially for the first 3, maybe 4 months of release. But since then, I have stopped purchasing the season passes, and I'm kind of waiting to choose which ones I buy a little more carefully. And I kind of do my dailies, and that's enough for me at this point.
Sure. No, I feel you. I have purchased the season. I've purchased 1 season pass so far for this season. So we'll see how it goes in the future as it goes forward. But let's talk a little bit about Marvel Snap, because some of our patrons might not know what it is. So let's inform them. It is a mobile card game. It is free to download. You do not have to pay money for it. It is free to play. You can buy credits, you can buy gold, you can buy things that help you in the game, but I will say this game does a pretty darn good job of keeping the free-to-play crowd at the same level. You know what I mean? Like, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree for the most part. Everything, it's not pay to win, right? But I have to stress that it is not pay to win. Now, if there are particular decks you're looking to build, buying the season pass can be a big help in synergy and things like that, but it's far from necessary. You will remain competitive with the cards that are doled out on a regular basis just from playing the game. Like, you'll definitely be in the mix for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It's they have challenges that replete or not replete. They refill like every couple hours, like every 8 hours, 10 hours or so. But there's always going to be challenges for you. You get free gold every day. As you go up in the ranks, you're going to get more cards. You're going to get credits. It's I think you said it best. It's not really pay to win. Although I'll be honest, I have sunk a couple bucks here and there, mainly
Same.
so I could refill my missions. I don't like to be playing if I don't have any active missions.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to spend your gold. So there are a few currencies in the game. There are credits. The main two, I think, without getting into collector's tokens, are the credits and the gold. Credits allow you to move up the collection ladder by upgrading your current cards. And it's not an upgrade that makes them more powerful in game. It just changes how the image looks. So that's cool, right? You get to have your cards look a little cooler. Other people see it when they're playing you. And there's no advantage you get from using those credits. And as you climb up that ladder, you also earn gold. Now, gold could be used to purchase variants of specific cards or things from the item shop. It kind of acts like a real monetary currency in that item shop. But the best use of gold is what Rick just talked about, is refilling those missions, because it gives you like bonus XP when you complete the missions, and it gives you credits when you complete the missions. And you could go ahead and just use your gold to buy credits outright, but you get that additional bonus of like meeting objectives and getting more objectives and getting season pass XP when you refill the missions. So yeah, definitely that is the correct use of gold, man, if I had to pick one. So yeah, good job figuring that out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, sometimes you'll get 2 extra missions if you choose to spend 120 gold to refill 2 missions. Sometimes, you'll get 250 credit missions. And, in those cases, it can work out such that spending the gold on credits directly could be more beneficial. I've found more often than not, it's not that. More often than not, the missions are the best way. And plus, because of what you said with the season pass EXP, that's really important.
Yeah, yeah.
Getting into just how the game plays, though, let's talk about it, because this game has such a short loop. Games last like maybe 5 minutes. I don't think I've had any go beyond like 7. Could be over in as little as 1 or 2. But I'm going to lay out a basic, just not definition, but a basic roadmap of how the game works. And I want you to correct me or add to it since you have more experience. So here it is. Everybody starts with 12 cards. You get to build your own deck before you start playing. There are 6 turns total. The first 3 turns, 3 zones will be revealed one at a time. These zones are going to give you buffs, like bonus damage to your cards, or debuffs, anything from less power on your cards as to something as severe as destroying your hand or destroying your cards. Turns 4, 5, and 6, no extra zones. You just got to play with what you got. Each turn, you get a set amount of energy. Turn 1, you get 1. Turn 2, you get 2, etc. Unspent energy does not carry over. And the goal of the game is to have more points on each side than your opponent. You need to win 2 out of the 3 zones to win. If you lose 2 out of the 3 or 3 out of the 3, you lose. And that's pretty much all there is to it. I mean, there's more to it, like abilities and, things like that. But what would you add just as a basic overview?
I think they do a really good job of getting you accustomed to that first. They give you cards that don't really have abilities or have simpler abilities to start with. So you kind of get the feel for just how to play the game. And then, as you mentioned, the energy allows you to play cards. Cards have a cost. and a power. Every card has a cost, and that's the amount of energy you have to expend to play that card. So cards that are 3 energy, you're not going to be able to play them the first turn because you only have 1 energy that turn. And as Rick mentioned, that goes up each turn. But there are cards and locations that affect how much energy is in play. And as Rick mentioned, the energy doesn't carry over. So if you don't make a move on turn 1, if you don't play a card, you don't get that 1 energy carried over to turn 2. But there are cards that make use of unspent energy. I think the game is really clever in finding ways to suit your needs, right? Like if you find you're running into a certain problem, like, hey man, I'm going through it, I'm not spending all my energy, then there's cards you could play to make use of that. And there are enough cards and enough variety that you could really build around your play style. And I know this is going a little deeper into the game than how the game is played, but there's a counter to everything, and I love it. I love it.
There really is. Before we get into the more advanced things like that, I was thinking about this unspent energy business. And, at first I really wanted unspent energy to roll over. I really desperately wanted that. But I don't think that's a good idea because the more I thought about it, and to be clear, I said it and then I thought for 30 seconds and was like, oh yeah, okay, that wouldn't work. If unspent energy rolled over, then you would have folks waiting until turn 4, 5, and 6 and just unleashing beast after beast after beast. And it wouldn't be as fun. So I think they made a great decision by making the rounds have set energy costs. Really good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because everybody would just wait until turn 6. I'll see what you do, and then I'll play my hand. Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about some of these advanced mechanics. The titular one is the snap. You can, if I can find the snap thing, I might insert that. Or maybe I'll hit up your voice acting friend, honestly.
He could probably do it.
Each game, one thing that I don't think we mentioned so far is played for keeps insofar as these cubes. Do they have a proper name?
The cosmic cubes, yeah.
It's
like a Marvel. In Marvel, there's only 1 cosmic cube. However, in Marvel Snap, there's a lot.
Each match, your baseline going to win or lose 2 if you play to the very end. And you need 10 to rank up. So you can maybe win 2, lose 2. And then you go up and down in that way. If you snap, that is you signaling to the opponent, hey, I'm confident, I'm going to double down. And then, if one person snaps, you're going to end up at the very end of the game with 4 total cubes per play. If both players snap, it goes up to 8. So you can really zip through the ranks if you know what you're doing, or if you're a little too snap happy and you don't retreat, which we'll talk about next, you might lose a lot of cubes, which was a mistake I made early on.
Yeah, I think this is the key. This is the meta game. This is the most important thing for ranking up, is knowing how to use your snaps and your retreats, which I'm sure you'll get into. But yeah, it's something you really only get a feel for through playing the game, but it is the most important thing. It's almost like poker, right? Knowing when to bet and knowing when to hold and knowing when to check. It's very, I know, I'm not going to sing.
Well, would you say that it's important to know when to hold them and when to fold them?
I would agree with that for sure, Rick. But yeah, it's cool. You kind of get a feel for how confident your opponent feels as well. If they snap early, they're probably pretty comfortable with how their deck works, and they're probably pretty comfortable that they have the cards needed to win. But you could also play that to your advantage if you have decks that aren't commonly used. They may think, oh, I win against most deck types, but you kind of have the trump card, right? The card that could defeat their deck in play. Then you could lure them into an 8 snap loss, and that's huge for you. Yeah.
Yeah, he is in this game too. The trump card. He's one of the biggest cards. He's one of the most powerful cards. Ask anybody. It's true.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You mentioned poker, and I have actually been in a couple of situations where it's been down to the 11th hour. It's turn 6, and we're tied in one zone, and I'm winning by 1 in one zone. They're winning by 1 in another zone, and I will snap on that turn 6, and I have had people retreat immediately after seeing the snap. And spoiler alert, my hand sucked.
Yeah.
It's really cool that way. And an additional little wrinkle that they add to the fold too is that some missions. Remember, we talked about missions earlier. Some missions that will gain you extra credits and extra EXP is to just win a game with a snap. So some folks might be snapping even if they're not super confident, just to do that mission. So it's a really cool dynamic, and I really like how it works. I think it's a really great addition to this game.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And especially as you get higher up in the ranks, people get antsy. People get a little jumpy. If they are not confident they have those cards on turn 6 and you snap, you can earn a lot of retreats just by them saying, oh, okay, like this guy's got it. Like I'll give it to him before I take the bigger hit. So yeah, it's definitely bluffing is a way to win.
Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit before about the zones. Just to talk a little more about the effects of those, we mentioned buffs to cards like the power. That's a pretty standard one. One that aggravates me every time are there's a zone that will shuffle 5 rocks into your deck immediately, and your deck is only 12 cards big, so that's almost half. It's almost half of your deck now turned into rocks, which don't have any attack power. But Ryan, as you said before, there's a counter to everything. My deck makes prominent use of a card called Carnage, who destroys every card in your zone and gets a +2 attack power. So in situations with rocks, he gets free bonus points, basically. While it is frustrating, there is a counterplay to it.
Yeah, and you could even use them to your strengths because there are cards that buff cards with no abilities. So if you have like Patriot in your hand or in your deck, you don't mind rocks really because you could give those rocks +2 and your opponent has to deal with them without that buff now since everybody got the 5 rocks in their deck. And if you have Patriot and Mystique, you could go Patriot and Mystique, then copies Patriot's abilities, giving those rocks like a 1/4, which is actually really good. Any low-cost, high-power card is going to work out well for you, for sure.
You're getting into the cards that I haven't got to yet. I've got those just by random happenstance, like when you play a card that draws a random card for you, but
right.
I don't encounter those quite as often.
Yeah, I run into them more than I play them. I have a deck that utilizes them, but it's not one of my favorite decks.
Listening to you talk about that, though, has led me to a question that I'm almost certain we both will agree on, so I'm just going to let you answer it because it's a quickie. Do you need to be well-versed in Marvel to like this game, or I'll even go a step further, do you even need to like Marvel to enjoy this game?
No, you don't. You do not, but it helps. It goes a long way. I think it goes a long way with the appreciation of how well thought out the abilities and strength of the cards are, but it's a Marvel skin on a extremely sound deck building game. Like that's what it is. It's completely sound CCG, and honestly, I think personally, I am a huge Marvel fan, full disclosure, but I think it's also like the best possible skin for something like this, just because the sheer variety of characters that they have on their roster. But you in no way have to be a Marvel fan or love Marvel.
Yep, I agree 100%. I'm not a big Marvel fan. I don't dislike Marvel. I don't really have an opinion. I think superheroes are cool, but I don't know a lot of these cards. But the cards that I do know, like Nightcrawler, one of his abilities is he can move. And cards normally can't move zones, but he can. That tracks to his abilities in the comics as far as I know them. And most cards are going to be like that. I mean, you can't do that for everything, and some cards don't have abilities at all, too. So all this to say, it's a roundabout way of saying exactly what Ryan said, which is what I do every time we talk. I just summarize Ryan because he's always
I'll say
right.
less.
Yeah.
Could you tell my wife that? She's in the other room. I could call her in real quick.
She'll come in and be like, "Oh, is this one of the scrubs I beat at Mario Kart?"
Oh, she probably would.
But yes, you don't need to be a huge Marvel fanatic. If you are, you're gonna like it probably a little bit more. But as somebody that is a very casual fan, if at all, I'm hooked on this game. So take my word for it. Definitely give it a try. Wanted to talk a little bit about decks right now, though, because I want to hear what you're messing with.
Okay.
Actually, maybe I should talk a little first because my cards are going to be more basic than yours, I think.
Maybe not, but yeah, I want to hear what you're messing with.
Sure. I have sunset my quote unquote main deck. I've put it away because it's been outclassed. I've got 2 decks right now that are focused on heavy debuffs to the enemy and major buffs to my cards. Specifically, I've got, the classic trio of Sabretooth, Wolverine, and Carnage, as well as Bucky Barnes, which is a good one. Another combo that I've been using a lot is Strongman and MODOK. Strongman has an ability, Strong Guy, excuse me.
Oh, no, this is a good combo, yeah.
It's a Strong Guy's ability. If your hand is empty, he gets a buff of +6, giving him 10 power, which is very high. MODOK will wipe your entire hand after you play him. So playing those 2 back-to-back is a really good way to get a quick 18 energy, provided you can account for your hand being gone. This is a turn 6 classic for me. I've won many a match by throwing out Strong Guy round 4, round 5, and then hitting them with MODOK. Works almost every time.
Yeah, I could see that. It's not one I've seen in use that often either, so good job there.
The only other card that I really like that's actually not in my current deck right now is Hobgoblin. Hobgoblin's got a really unique ability. He has -8 attack power, but when you play him, he automatically jumps to the other side, provided there's an empty space. So you are taking a little bit of a risk, as I've done before, where you play it, and then they fill up their board on the same turn, and then you're stuck with a -8 on your side of the field. Does kind of suck. However, the other day, there was a zone that had the effect was you could only play 1 card per side there.
Oh, yeah.
And I managed to get Hobgoblin in before they played their card. So that was an immediate win to my to that side for me. And I didn't even have to play a card. I won with 0. It was a great feeling.
That is a good feeling for sure. Green Goblin's another one who's a 3 cost, and he's -3 and works in the exact same fashion. And let me tell you, when you get, I have decks that it really doesn't matter. You could hit me with a Green Goblin, Hobgoblin, whatever, I'll cope. But when you hear their laugh, when it activates, it triggers something primal in me where I'm like, I have to crush you now.
There was a little bit at the very beginning. One of the earliest strong cards you can get is Hulk. He's got 12 attack, which is still probably one of the highest I've seen. And he costs 6. But when you play him, he always does the Hulk smash, and he rattles the board. And for a long time, that was anytime that happened, I would just get a little bit mad because it usually meant I was losing too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the Hulk's a good card, and actually that Patriot thing I was mentioning earlier acts with the Hulk. So when he's a normal card, so you could make the Hulk 15 powered by having Patriot out on the playing field.
Oh wow,
which is pretty tough. Yeah, pretty tough to beat.
Enough about my decks though.
I want to hear what else.
That particular deck that I've been using, turn 1, I'll throw out Iceman. He can give an additional cost to an opponent's card. Turn 2, maybe Scorpion to take their attack down, or Okoye to buff my whole deck. But what I like to do is get 3 of the 4 spaces filled up with Bucky Barnes, Wolverine, and Sabretooth, and then lay down Carnage.
Oh, yeah.
Bucky turns into the Winter Soldier. That's an extra 6 attack power. Sabretooth goes back to your hand, and then you can play him for no cost. And Wolverine gets double his attack and then jumps to a random location, plus Carnage's buffs. It's really good. However, with this deck in particular, I'm basically losing until turn 4 at the earliest every time. So it's a bit stressful. But it works out sometimes. You know, I'm hovering around rank 50. I haven't got there yet. I'm like sitting right at 48, 49. Can't quite crest to that 50, but I'm getting closer.
Mm-hmm. That's cool, man. Yeah, that's really good, actually. Like that's not a bad ranking at all. And Wolverine and Deadpool can be very powerful because, as you mentioned, I think they both double when destroyed and go back. Deadpool goes back to your hand as a 1 cost, and Wolverine gets put on a different location. But I have seen people use that to their advantage because it's incredible how quickly 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, and you're sitting there with a 16 power Wolverine who can win a spot all by himself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Very good, very good.
All right. Sage Master, school me.
Yeah.
Tell me what's up.
Dude.
Tell me the good word.
If you're sitting around 48, 49, I think you're currently higher than me. So I don't know how much of a Sage Master I am when it comes down to it. But I think my most sound decks since I started playing, and just because of my personal play style, have always involved Devil Dino. Early on, I was mixing him with Moon Girl a lot because Devil Dino's power is based off of how many cards you have in your hand. And Moon Girl adds 4 cards, or like duplicates your hand, basically. So if I had Devil Dino in my hand and I used Moon Girl, not only does she add more cards to my hand, which make Devil Dino more powerful, I now have 2 Devil Dinos to play, which is very powerful. But I have since left Moon Girl behind, and I have a deck that is just dedicated to adding cards to my hand, not necessarily the ones I already have. It has things like the Quinjet, which I think is one of the most underrated cards in Marvel Snap. It makes any card that didn't start in your deck cost 1 less. So this might not sound good, but if you make use of like Cable, for instance, who steals a card from your opponent's deck, your opponent now loses a card, maybe one of their most powerful. And if for them it's a 6 cost card, it's a 5 cost card for you now. And I also use like Agent 13, who just adds 1 random card to your deck. So it's cool because it makes it harder to predict what you can do with this deck, right? People can't always expect it to be Devil Dino because they know you have random cards in your deck. I use Agent Coulson for the same thing. On turn 3, if he's in my hand, I will use him every time. Another underrated card because he adds a random 4 cost and 5 cost card to your hand. And sometimes the cards he adds are so good, like I will play them before I even play Devil Dino because it's random and they could be like the best 5 cost cards I don't even have available to build a deck around, you know? The reason I also really like this deck is because it's important to have counters in there. There are 2 different types of abilities, 2 main different types of abilities. There are on reveal and ongoing. So some cards you play and their on reveal ability triggers as soon as the card flips that turn. Ongoing means it lasts as long as that card is in play. So for example, something like, I think Blue Marvel is on reveal. He adds 1 to all your other cards. But something like Patriot, or no, Blue Marvel's ongoing, but there is Spectrum, who's like an on-reveal. She adds power to cards. But there are cards that have that ongoing that have a similar effect. So I have in here Rogue, who can trigger and steal an ongoing ability from a random enemy. And let me tell you, you want to see people retreat? Wait until after they play Patriot and use Rogue on Patriot, and they will immediately retreat every time. And I love it. So I also have Cosmo in this deck who blocks on reveal abilities. So if you see somebody, this is huge because if people put down Wong, who duplicates on reveal abilities, and you put Cosmo on there, like the next turn, they will retreat because now their whole game plan is bupkis. It's gone, right? And I also have Shang-Chi in this deck because Shang-Chi can destroy all enemy cards at a location that are 9 power or more. So this deck's also really good at countering almost anything you go up against if you're patient in using those cards. Most games I don't need them, but if I see the right cards in play, I'll use them and they will earn me a retreat instead of a potential loss, which is always good. And the main crux of this, I have a few more that add cards to your hand, but I have the collector who gains power every time cards are added to your hand. But at the end of the day, I have Devil Dino and Zola. So my main strategy here is to play 2 locations and get all those juicy cards added to my deck and leave 1 location empty. And then on turn 5, I will play Devil Dinosaur on that location. And 99% of the time, if my opponent is playing with a Shang-Chi or a rogue who would steal Devil Dino's ongoing ability, I try to make sure I have priority going into that 6 turns. So I will be the first person to turn cards. So I will play Arnim Zola there. What he does is he destroys Devil Dino and replicates him at the other 2 locations. So now I have a Devil Dino at the 2 locations they didn't think I was playing him on. And usually if they play a counter, it's wasted on nothing now. So it's worked out. That little misdirection at the end really works out.
That is ice cold.
Yeah. And just real quick, I know I'm talking about that deck a lot, but another one I like that I just recently built is based around basically taking power away from your opponent. I have things like Hazmat, Odin, and Wong. So Hazmat takes 1 power away from all the cards in play, including yours. So if I use Hazmat on Wong, it takes 2 power away from everybody. And then if I use Odin on turn 6, it'll have that happen again. But the key card here is Luke Cage. So if I'm playing Luke Cage and my opponent's not, my cards can't have their power reduced. So, and this works retroactively. So you could even get Hazmat out there to do the damage and get all these other cards out there to do the damage. And it happens to you and it happens to your opponent. And then you could play Luke Cage on turn 6, so they have less of a chance of stealing that ability or hindering it. And it retroactively gives that power that you lost back to you. So, yeah, this has worked out really well where I'll win absurd games where I'll have like 4 power at 2 locations, but my opponent has like -6 power, because the more cards they put there, the more power they lose, right? If they have 4 cards at a location, every time I trigger Hazmat, they're losing 4 power. So yeah, it's a fun one. I really enjoy using that one too, but there are just so many options. And I think the coolest thing is you're almost at an advantage when you notice your opponent falls into the meta decks, right? Like there are move decks and all these other ones, and you see a lot of similar deck usage. So if you offer something unique that you built yourself and you crafted because you think these cards go together well, and your opponent is using like the standard move deck, you'll know by like the cards they play by turn 2 what kind of deck they're playing with. And you'll immediately be thinking like, oh, I can beat this deck and here's how. And it allows you to move forward as the turns go, as you get deeper into that match. So, yeah, it's real deep. This game is surprisingly deep and yet not inaccessible for, like, anybody could jump in and be successful, but there's a lot of depth there if you look for it.
Absolutely. And I've showed this game and introduced this game to a couple people at this point, and every time they're getting hooked. So
nice.
And it is really approachable for anybody. Once you start getting into the strategies, it becomes really fun. You've heard a lot of great strategies from Ryan. I dropped a little bit here. I think this is such an easy recommendation just for anybody to try.
Well, I will recommend it, and I'm glad. I mean, honestly, like when I was podcasting, and even now, I know you picked up Midnight Suns at my recommendation, and that one's a little more targeted for a certain audience, but I hope you get some enjoyment out of it, because There's nothing scarier than recommending a game for people and having them not enjoy it, like not knowing how they're going to feel about it. But I will say Marvel Snap is one that I could wholeheartedly recommend. And if you have any interest in deck building games, you're going to love it.
Absolutely. Another reason that I picked this up when I did is because I had an itch for Yu-Gi-Oh! And
Nice.
I just happened to hear you and Brian talk about it. And I was like, all right, we'll give it a try. I play it literally every day. Some days for too long. So it's not perfect. It's not perfect, but it is very, very good. And it is free. So easy recommendation from both of us, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
Cool. Well, we're wrapping it up here. Before we go, I do just want to say, if you're interested in doing more tournaments, yeah, I'm talking as if I'm talking to myself. If you're interested in doing tournaments in general for Marvel Snap with a friendly community, that is to say a non-toxic, supportive, and kind space, look for Listoff Podcast on socials, on Twitter, on Instagram. You'll be able to find links to their to their Discord there. Most of you hearing this at release are patrons. You're probably already in that server, but just in case I decide to release this months down the road for the general audience, do look that up because it's a very active channel. Listoff's got everybody is really kind. The tournaments are a lot of fun. I got wiped my first one, and I'm looking forward to coming back and doing some more. So if you're at all interested, please do join in. At the very least, you'll have friends with Ryan and I in there, but I mean, everybody in there is great. So do it up.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate that, and I'm glad you're having fun with it, and I'm glad you're in the tournaments. And I have both wiped and been wiped, so I feel your pain, man. I feel your pain.
Can't go out on any better turn of phrase than that, I think. So for today, we're gonna call it. We don't do plugs on the Patreon episodes because you're already where you need to be. So once again, patrons, thank you. Means the world to me. It means even more right now than I think you understand. Till next time, I'm Rick Firestone. Thank you, Ryan, for joining me. This has been Pixel Project Radio. We'll see you later.